Welcome to a new way of living, intentional living. Imagine a home that doesn't just look good, but feels good. A sanctuary that aligns with your values and nourishes your soul. That's the essence of holistic home design. Holistic design isn't about isolating rooms. It's about interconnected spaces that flow seamlessly. Think of window placements that maximize natural light, or furniture arrangements that encourage conversation. It's about balance, flow, and the overall wellness of those who inhabit the space. But what about the planet? Sustainability is the third pillar. Eco-friendly materials, energy-efficient appliances, and even indoor plants can make your home a haven for you and a friend to the environment. The magic happens when intentional living, holistic design, and sustainability come together. It's not just a home, it's a lifestyle choice, a conscious decision to live in harmony with yourself and the world around you. So are you ready to transform your living space into a holistic haven? The choice is yours. Leo, you've embraced simplicity and minimalism. As you transformed your life, how was that reflected in your family's home?
Well, it had to start with me, as you said. I had to look at what I was bringing into the house, the space that I could control. So instead of me trying to get rid of all my family stuff, so we have a big family of 6 kids. It's a Brady Bunch mixed family, but big family. And so instead of me taking all their toys or trying to toss my wife's stuff into the trash, it was really about me me looking at what I was what I could control, what I was owning and what I was bringing in. And as I started doing that, what it was is a model for everybody else in my life. And so they started to see me making these changes and what was really positive about it. I started sharing that with them and started radiating it outward. My wife now is probably more of a minimalist than I am, which is really cool. My kids are not. So they have their spaces where they get to do whatever they want. But in common spaces, we make agreements around how we want to share that space. So
that's cool. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, for sure. I think there needs to be a lot of agency if you're in a family. And so letting them own their stuff is a big part of it. But it's also how do we want to live as a family? What are our values? And what actually makes us happier versus feel really cluttered?
Matthias, what are your thoughts on transforming a living space? Why is it so important?
Well, it really relates back to our origin. See, in architecture, the term we use for this is biophilic design. Now, biophilia is our innate affinity to all things living. And many of these affinities work at a subconscious level, meaning they affect our physiology and our psyche at a molecular level without our intention. I prepared a few visuals, if I could have the slides, please. And I can support a little bit what I'm talking about. So biophilia means the love of living systems, and it can dramatically improve the way we feel and also how we perform in our everyday life. Here's an example for biophilia. It's a 17-story residential project in Texas that's made of wood. It's a very special type of wood that's referred to as mass timber. And for this type of undertaking, science discovered that genetic links exist that show how our biological responses, how they are encoded in our makeup and trigger positive reactions in our physiology and our psychology. So all this happens without intention, but just by how our body responds. And speaking of how our body responds, did you know that touching wood for 90 seconds lowers the release of stress hormones in your brain, in your body? There's scientific research around this in a 2019 study, participants performed written tests in furniture settings with white surfaces, plastic surfaces, and wooden surfaces. And what they learned is that over the exposure of a minute and a half or so, the stress levels on wooden surfaces was reduced. The cortisol release in your brain was reduced by 38%, by 30, 40%. So now, if taking tests on wooden surfaces can help you control your mood and your motivation and your stress and your fear, then maybe there is something more about it. And similarly, this is the heart rate over those 75, 90 minutes and of this test taking, and it demonstrates in blue that a wooden surface will lower your beats per minute by 5 to 10. And if you extrapolate this over a lifespan, a person's lifespan, then you can imagine the positive impact of those materials in the world. Similarly, research shows that the presence of water prompts greater improvement of self-esteem and mood, and activities conducted in green environments or those with access to views of nature will improve our performance. This is a project here in my region, a project we designed in the Seattle region. A very different scale of a project, but again, the use of water here in Lotte Center, Hanoi, a project we designed in Vietnam. Again, the inclusion of water as a means to reduce your stress levels and improve your overall performance. The science behind biophilic design explains how this works. There is a psychology professor called Dr. Vatanian in Toronto, and he studies several complex cognitive functions such as empathy, emotion, impulse control, and decision-making. And he found that the sight of curvilinear shapes activate an emotional region in your brain that determines what is beautiful. So spaces without your doing are judged as beautiful when they echo nature's curved lines. And this here is an example of the use neutral tower, one of our design concepts. In this project here, lastly, then the core of your question is the sanctuary of well-being. What is the sanctuary? And it's the places that we as humans seek that include nature in fundamental ways. And this project here, the high-rise project, has interior sky gardens. It is something that we experimented in with our project Lotte Center Hanoi here in Vietnam, where the entire building, residential and hotel and offices, are organized with a central stack of sky gardens that travel top to bottom and produce these really sacred spaces of retreat and of pause. Thank you.
That's incredible. I obviously need more wood in my life.
Yeah, I need to go hug some trees. But it also is interesting what you said about water, because I do have a water fountain at my entrance, which also I think will segue into Feng Shui. And I know a little bit about, but I definitely want to hear more.
Yeah, Mark, tell us about the elements, because I know the elements are so important to the Chinese, and why in Feng Shui is placement so important?
I mean, I'll speak primarily to the elements here because Matthias did a beautiful job on educating us on how physiologically, mentally, emotionally, on all of these levels, our environment is communicating to us beyond our conscious comprehension. And when you incorporate the elements of nature, and this is, I'm absolutely loving all of the science. I've been really delving into environmental psychology and biophilic design as well. And to know that the science is supporting this is really important. So the fact, I mean, I love this wood table story. And, you know, we also need water. The Chinese have 5 elements in their system. So it's water, wood, water nourishes wood, wood fuels fire. So you need fire. Every room needs a splash of red. Then earth, and then metal. And so there's this whole creative cycle that goes with those. And when they all relate to emotions, they relate to personality functions, and when your environment incorporates all of these elements, we feel at ease because our bodies come from nature, and we're living in environments with straight lines, which in nature are read as a threat. And so again, this information, I've been on a soapbox for 20 plus years about curves and the need for curves, and the fact that, you know, when we're living, you know, it's convenient to have a flat table and a flat wall to hang your art and so on. But when you incorporate curves, you put a plant in a corner, you have some curves in the furniture, all of a sudden your nervous system can calm down. And so it's the same thing for the elements. And there's certain things we do in Feng Shui, like red, especially on the horizon, the far side of a wall, it symbolizes the sun on the horizon, and it draws you into the space. So there's all of these subconscious techniques where we basically take what's happening in nature and we bring it into the built environment, and it just resonates. And just like you don't need to know necessarily how the engine of your car works in order to know how to drive, you know, when interior design is done well and these ingredients are all there, you'll just walk into a space and you'll feel at home.
Katie, do the characters that you play ever influence your home design?
That's a really interesting question. Yes, absolutely. They influence, you know, when I embody a character, it influences everything around me, especially while I'm shooting. But having a space and a home, you know, it's my sanctuary, and where, you know, as everyone, I go back to, and when I'm shooting, I don't always, you know, sometimes I shoot in different locations. And so I'm put into a hotel, and I am definitely, this is so funny, someone who I will go into a hotel room, and the first thing I do is I rearrange the furniture. And I'm sorry to say that, but I do. I like to feel like, you know, everything is in flow, and there's intention with every space. And especially within my home, and you guys had mentioned decluttering. I had met someone probably 15 years ago, and I'm not exactly sure what her job title was, but she said to me, you really should go through your stuff and declutter and take out what doesn't serve you. Because she said, think about it, if you have all this stuff and all this clutter, and this stuff is just there, living there, not being used, it's just sort of just taking up space. But if you actually donate it to charity, or, you know, if it doesn't serve you and it isn't bringing purpose, get rid of it. And that way that's allowing new space for new things to come into your life. And I think that it really stuck with me. And I spent so much time just decluttering so much just stuff that I've accumulated over the years. And it's almost like I could breathe again. And another thing, you know, with your brain, and I have a tendency to do this, is I won't write stuff down. I'll just use my brain as a filing cabinet, which that's not what it's supposed to be used for. So instead of having all this information, which I appreciate, in my brain, if I actually just take it, you know, write stuff down, make notes, it's then not living in here taking up space. I can see it, I can have a checklist, check it off. And even the act of that is so fulfilling. And again, I'm like, oh, good, I can breathe. So yeah. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted, Andy.
I think that I'm the king of clutter. So with that, we will move to segment 2.